Hi, everybody. I'm Megan,
And I'm Steven.
and this is the Synchrony Podcast, where we talk about transforming apostolic dating and ending loneliness in the church.
And shenanigans.
And shenanigans. Yeah, that's the name of the game over here.
That's
yeah,
more my end.
yeah. Steven, you bring the fun and lightheartedness to our relationship. The
That's what you want to
spontaneity.
call it.
I do. It's important. Otherwise, I would like when I was living by myself in grad school, I remember I would just like find myself on the weekend just like staring into the void, thinking deep, dark thoughts all the time. You don't let me do that too much, which is nice.
Yes. We opposites attract people.
Yeah. And speaking of which, today, this is our second episode that we're recording. And so in our last episode, we talked about what the Synchrony Project is, how we have started an apostolic matchmaking service to connect singles based
Called
on
the Synchrony Project.
right, to connecting singles based on alignment with each other's values. So if you want to know more about how that project works and what we're doing, please go back and listen to the first episode. This episode, we're going to talk about us a little bit.
About who we are.
Yeah, we're going to give our story so you guys have context on, I guess, where we came from and why we're so passionate about this.
Yeah. I think we should tell our story. Well, should we talk about who we are and what we do for a living, or should we just go into about us?
I mean, like, let's take just a minute to just we'll highlight that. So we have day jobs that are not podcasting and matchmaking as much as we would love to spend all of
That
our
would
time
be
doing
fantastic, but
that. Yeah. So
we're not there yet.
Talk about what you do.
So I am currently the beekeeper at the Honeybee Research and Extension Laboratory for the University of Florida. And I currently help manage honeybee colonies for research. It's my responsibility to make sure that we have the number of hives needed for a project and quality of hives needed for a project. And I work together with an amazing team of people to make that research and extension and education happen.
Yeah, they're saving the bees.
One bee at a time.
Every individual bees.
Yeah. Linda and Lucy and Lori. Most of them are females, by the way. That's why I'm making that joke.
Yes. And this is an interesting point, not just because it's cool that Steven is a beekeeper, and that's a weird and cool job to have, but it's also interesting because Steven going into beekeeping was actually sort of a critical move in our marriage that I think laid the groundwork for everything we're doing now.
One of the two critical moves.
Yeah. So I work for a software company. I'm not very technical though. Like I'm not a very techie person. So Steven is the one who has to do all the like sound editing and stuff for this and make it.
You can blame me if it's terrible.
Yeah, but like Steven's better with actual like technology. I work in operations for the software company. So I work in the people side and helping with training. And so I've been doing that for about 6 years. So we both moved into different careers right after we got married. But let's get to that in a minute. Let's back out and talk about how we met. What's your first memory of me? Do you remember?
So a little background. Megan came to South Florida. I'm originally from Palm Beach County. And I used to go to a church of Tabernacle of Pentecost, it used to be called, in West Palm Beach, under Pastor Daniel Kyle.
I love you, Pastor Kyle.
Yeah. And Megan was going to FAU, or was choosing schools, and was looking for churches close to the school that she was going to. And she chose FAU and our church.
Go Owls.
Yeah. Ooh.
I don't think we ever hooted. Burrowing owls are a terrible school mascot, by the way. If you are in charge of picking a mascot for a university, do not pick an animal that willfully just inserts itself into a hole in the ground and hides.
Yes, exactly.
Not good.
And she was actually at my church for about 3.5, 4 years. And we knew of each other, but actually we were in and out of relationships like during that time. So when I was single, she was dating someone and vice versa. But really that wasn't what we never really noticed each other.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about it now because like we were on the platform together probably most Sundays.
Yeah. You
Because
did-
I was doing
Megan,
music.
Yeah, Megan would sing, and I did armor bearing.
Yeah, which not every church has that. So in West
Yeah.
Palm, they had a because of the unique setup of their church, they were setting up in a school. Actually, they were renting a high school to host the church, and so they had this massive effort every Sunday and Wednesday to set up for service and create all the sound infrastructure and put it up, tear it down. It was just incredible. And so there was a group of really amazing young men mostly who helped with that and also just made themselves available to the ministers that were there to get them whatever they needed and to kind of be the right hand, I guess, of the ministry team. So
Yeah. Well, and Pastor Kyle was also over foreign missions for the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a lot of missionaries come through our church. Yeah. And because of our circumstances of not having a physical building that was ours, it was our responsibility to make sure that the ministry and the visiting ministry had everything they needed for the service and
Yeah.
make sure that the order of service kind of went the way it should go.
really beautiful ministry. Like I feel like that encapsulates a lot of who you are. Like you've always been, ever since I've known you at least, like the kind
Thanks,
of person.
Chris.
Yeah. Chris is the guy who's running the armor bearing program. Also happens to be Stephen's cousin, because in church you can't throw a rock without hitting a cousin.
That's right.
If you haven't discovered that already, you haven't been saved long enough. But no, it's a beautiful ministry because I think you have always sort of had a very servant focus. You know, you've always had a servant's heart, I think, and it was really built there.
So all that being said, we were in youth class one day, or hyphen class, and we were walking out at the same time. And basically what ended up happening is, I think during that youth service or that hyphen service, she was answering some questions and I was like listening to her responses, and I thought she had some really valid responses and made me kind of notice her more that night. And so when we were walking out and I happened to be talking to her, for whatever reason, I happened to point out, I was like, hey, we somehow talked about cold sores in this conversation. I hope I didn't bring it up.
What you did bring it up. What you did was you tried to provide a solution to my problem, because
Yes.
that is how,
Because-
again, with the servant's heartedness, you're like, I can help. I can fix
and
this.
the mansplaining. I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
no, Steven loves he's a fixing guy. He just and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like you see a problem, you find a solution. So you look at me and you're like, hey, have you ever tried taking lysine for your cold sores?
Because my family has canker sores, which are the ones that are the inside of your mouth.
Yeah, but so anyway, lysine is just a vitamin. It's a vitamin that
It's
helps.
just a vitamin that helps
your
your body.
skin.
Yeah, helps
Yeah.
your body be able to get through that faster. And she pulls out a bottle out of her purse, and she's like, "Yep, got it right here." And there was something quirky about her attitude and her personality that I was like, "This girl's cool." And then we happened to be going to get frozen yogurt that night with a couple friends and my sister.
Hold on. You have to understand how this works in West Palm for this to make sense. So in West Palm, after every service, they had this massive youth group and hyphen group, like all together. Hyphen, if you're not part of the UPCI, hyphen is their young adult ministry. Not every
It's like
church has that.
18 to 35,
Right.
single.
So when we say hyphen, that's what we're talking about. Somebody would be like, hey, do you guys want to go get dinner? Or do you guys want to go get food? Or do you guys want to go get froyo? And then it would take 45 minutes of different people going to talk to different groups of people around the parking lot for everyone to decide where they were going, when they were going to go, which one they were going to, because evidently there's always 3 of whatever restaurant it is, and who's riding with who, and who's going where, and how are they getting there. And so you just have to sort of wait for an hour after service for everyone to figure out where they're going. So Steven approached me and was like, hey, some of us are going to get froyo. And I heard that as the entire youth group is going to go get froyo.
Well, I'm sorry that's how you heard it. But I had a couple friends that said that they were going to go as well, including one of them being my sister. And we get there, and on my way there, I'm getting texts from individual people saying, hey, I can't show up. Hey, I can't show up. Or, hey, I can't come anymore.
Right.
until it eventually just ended up being me, Megan, and a couple other friends.
No, it was just your sister.
It was
It
just
was
her?
you, me,
I
and
thought,
Jen.
okay. Anyways, so it ended up being just the three of us for like an hour and a half. And we just hit it off.
Did you know when when you asked me to go get Froyo, was there already some kind of a romantic interest somewhere in the back of your head, or was it just like we should involve her?
I
She's
mean,
cool.
I thought you were pretty and you sang really well, but I mean, I wasn't like going there with intentions of asking you out or
Yeah.
anything.
You
like
weren't
that.
thinking that this was like a dating scenario.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So we sat there and talked for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I can't remember, 2.5 hours, and we just connected. We had a really good conversation. My poor sister had to sit there and just listen to everything.
It's important context. Steven's sister is nonverbal.
Yeah, she's nonverbal.
So she literally just had to sit there and listen to us go back and forth about everything under the sun.
yeah.
Thank you, Jen. We love you.
We love you, Jen.
We're
Thank
sorry.
you for tolerating us. But yeah, so we ended up having a good conversation and really connected until like a couple days later, I asked you to go get Froyo again because other group of people wanted to go get Froyo.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm always up for Froyo.
yeah. And long story short, after everyone left, me and Megan ended up standing in the parking lot for like 2.5 more hours and just like, this is going to sound weird to say, but like falling in love with each other's brains. Like,
Well, but here's the thing, like I hadn't like love was nowhere close to my mind at that point. Like I literally just thought for these two interactions and then for I think the other like the next two as well, I had no idea that you were forming an interest. And there's reason for this, guys. Like I'm not completely dumb. Like I had dated prior to this, but Steven is like the friendliest person you've ever met. Okay. So in church, like he knew everyone in the youth group. He was just a really easy person to talk to no matter who you were. He was able to fit in with any friend group and he developed really close relationships with everyone. And it wasn't like, you know, in my mind, we were having these great conversations and I was 100% convinced you just thought I was cool to talk to because you were cool with talking to everyone.
and I think I was still at that point too, but I think getting to know your personality more, I was like, this girl is really stinking cool. And by the end of that conversation, the first night, going back, I remember specifically me and my sister I rented for my sister at the time, and so we drove in separate cars though, and we were driving the same way home, and I had my windows down and my sister rolled her window down, and I was joking, but this kind of is a testament to how much I liked her personality. I said very loudly across the red light, I think I'm in love. I think I found my wife. Completely joking, but that's how much I liked her personality.
Yeah.
And I think over the course of the next week or so, we saw each other 2, 3 more times.
Yeah. You brought Brad along for one of them.
Yeah.
So that's why I thought we were just hanging out as buds.
Well, accountability and, stuff like that. But
I guess.
she thought I was just a friend coming to see her.
Yeah.
But all that being said, I'm like, man, I really like this girl. But during that time, I found out from her that she was about to leave to go do her master's degree.
Yeah, I was about to graduate.
At the University of Florida. And she, mind you, this is South Florida, so it's like a 4-hour drive for me. And I really did not want to do another long distance relationship.
Right.
And so I was used to be really close with my pastor, and he was like a father figure to me. Backstory: my father passed away when I was 12 from Lou Gehrig's disease, and so paternal figures in my life are very important to me, and Pastor Kyle being one of them. And so I went and talked to him. I was like, man, I really like this girl. What do I do? And he looks at me and goes, you better, verbatim, he goes, you better nail that down before she leaves, or someone smarter than you is going to pick her up when she goes to college.
Can we just pause for a minute and appreciate Pastor Kyle for saying that, though? Because I feel like a lot of our ministers are very much trained to tell their young people, like, I feel like it would be normal for a minister to say, like, well, use caution, like, go really slow. And I think Pastor Kyle just saw, like, the risk of this decision was pretty low. Like,
Yeah.
we were both dedicated in church and had our for the most part we had our heads on straight, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And so I was like, okay, Pastor, thanks. And of course, I was still being prayerful about it. Didn't take his word as like the Bible, but I prayed about it, made sure I had peace, and then before she left, I asked her to go get dinner with me, and I was super cheesy and asked her to be my girlfriend after that date, and the rest is history.
yeah. And it was nice because yeah, like I wasn't really looking for a relationship at that point. Both of us had prior relationships. I had, and we'll probably talk about this in another episode, but I had done dating all the way wrong, I think, growing up, in the sense that I had really dated out of a lack. I dated out of a desire for validation and affirmation, not because I was really looking to genuinely connect with someone. And I had dated people sort of because I had bought into some like cultural myths of ours of, you know, love at first sight and reading the hand of God where it wasn't the hand
Yeah,
of God.
looking for writing on the wall.
Yeah. And so I had gotten myself into some pretty unhealthy relationships. And I had ended one the summer before we started talking. So almost a year before we started to date. That had just destroyed me. I mean,
Yeah.
it almost took me out. It shook my faith. It shook my sense of self. But it had made me go through this reckoning process of figuring out, you know, that I didn't want to just date for all the reasons I'd been dating before. And I really was kind of at a place of contentment where I didn't feel like I needed a relationship when you and I started talking. So it was wonderful and different in that sense because I felt like it was real. You know, we were grown and I wasn't dating out of a weird sense of like, I don't know, false expectations and
Yeah.
a lack of self-confidence, I guess.
Yeah.
But we started dating and like we dated for 6 months, maybe
It was like 8.
6 or 8 months,
8
and
or
it was
9.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
like we dated long distance, but it was fine. We
Yeah.
saw each other a couple times a month, maybe.
Yeah, and she was in the grind of her master's, her first and second semester of her master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I was not in nursing school yet, but
I think you were finishing up your prereqs.
I was trying
or
to finish up
something.
my prerequisites for nursing school.
Yeah.
So we both had school like that we were dedicating a lot of our time to,
Mm-hmm.
but we tried to spend as much time with each other as we could in between our breaks and stuff.
And
But
it was a good relationship by all standards.
really
I mean,
was.
our families were really happy with it.
yeah,
It was a pretty healthy relationship, I think, and so that made it really weird when we decided to break up.
we decided to break up. Please expound. I would love to hear more about this.
Okay, so I just said that I had dated a lot before,
Yes.
right? And in those relationships, and I think this was just the Holy Ghost, like in those relationships, there was always a moment when I suddenly realized that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of an action someone took, or maybe it's because I just kind of came to my senses, but I would always have this moment of sort of realization like, oh, this is not going to go where it needs to go. And it was like, once you saw that, you couldn't unsee it, right? No matter how much you liked that person, I always felt compelled to end the relationship when that happened, because it was like, you just got this pit in your stomach, like this is going nowhere good. And so then it was just like, okay, well, how do we get out of this? Like, you know, what needs to end? So I'd had that feeling before, and it was always very clear, like the reason why, you know, there was always something I could point to and say, like, this doesn't line up with who I want to be, or this doesn't line up with scripture, or I'm not comfortable with this. And that provided me with the off ramp. And with us, we were dating, and one day, literally, I woke up with that feeling in my stomach, and I couldn't find the reason. Like, I woke up and it was just eating at me that something was wrong. And I didn't have anything to point to. Like, we had a good relationship.
Yeah.
I loved you.
It was a healthy relationship. We were prayerful, still very involved in our ministries that we were involved in.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were, you know, maintaining personal holiness, and like we were like doing everything we could to keep the relationship really healthy, and there weren't any red flags that I could see. So I woke up with this just feeling in my spirit, is how I'll describe it, that something was wrong.
Yeah.
And it was bothering me, so I talked to you about it. We were always very transparent,
Yeah.
even while we were dating. And I told you, like, look, I don't know why this is happening, but I'm feeling a lot of uneasiness in our relationship. And we were getting ready to go. My youth group, that I was back home now at my home church going to grad school. So my youth group was getting ready to go on their annual retreat. And so we kind of said, let's take some time and just pray about this and kind of fast from our communication a little bit to give ourselves some time to focus, and see, what God tells us about it. And he didn't really say much. I mean, like, I was,
Yeah. No,
like,
I honestly came out of it thinking like, oh, well, that was a nice fast.
yeah, like I was really hoping he would, like, deliver a prophecy to me or something.
But I mean, I'm going to be clear. I did not have the discomfort that she had.
Yeah. So I went on this retreat. I didn't hear the voice of God. I came home and I still hadn't really heard a clear yes or no, but I just couldn't shake the feeling.
Yeah.
And so I kind of decided, I'm like, well, this must be God trying to call me out of this, and again, I had made mistakes in dating before. I didn't want to make more. So I called you because there wasn't going to be a time for me to drive down and see you to do this. So I called you, and told you that we needed to break up.
Yeah. I think,
Do you remember what you said to me when I told you that?
I do. The hard part for me was I was both extremely sad. Like, I was like torn apart, but at the same time, I wanted her to listen to that feeling if that was the voice of God. And I know she was a prayerful woman, and I didn't want her to ignore it, because last thing I wanted her to do is ignore it, us continue our relationship, and it's still going to end in despair. So I said to you, crying, I'm like, I'm proud of you.
Oh yeah, it was like the most heartbreaking, gut-wrenching thing you could have said. I mean, I just broke your heart, and you're like, I'm so proud of you. And I'm like, yeah, I can't. Like, it was terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, which I was like, this is even more validation that I want her to be my wife. I wanted to be with her because she was listening to that voice. And so I was like, okay, I said to her, I was like, if we are going to break this relationship off, then I love you too much to not be able to just be friends. Like, we are going to have complete separation.
Yeah, you set some really firm boundaries, and I'm really grateful for that, because I would have had a hard time holding those, I think. But you were just like, we're not going to talk. Like,
Yeah.
And so we didn't talk really. So during this period, so I go off back into singleness, and again, like, I don't know why God put this feeling in my heart, but I decide in my humanity, like, this must be because God wants me to be with someone else, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, this must be because God wants me to be with, and I start filling in that blank with, like, all of the things that I thought I really wanted in someone. So I was like, I was on this track to go get, and at this time I wanted to go get my PhD. I wanted to go be a professor. I was like, okay, maybe he wants me to be with an academic and someone who's going to be working at a university and, speaking the language that I speak in this sort of academic space. All of this is really ironic later, so just stay tuned.
Quite the opposite.
Yeah, maybe. No, but like, maybe he wants me to be with someone who is, a minister, or like a platform minister, right? Someone who's a preacher or evangelist, which is not what Stephen was doing at the time. Maybe he wants me to be with someone. The list just went on, right? So I kind of just decided, like, I must not be right for this person. And I started dating, or trying to, and I did like the Apostolic Singles Network thing, which was weird. God bless the Apostolic Singles Network. I know that there are amazing people that are running that, and great people that have found partners on it. I didn't have a great experience there. It was just another dating site,
Yeah. And during this time for me, I just was focusing on school, and bowling. I did a lot of bowling during that time
Just trying to heal.
yeah. Well, in preparation for nursing school was pretty strenuous. So
Yeah.
um, just I was healing from the heartbreak and trying to just put my best foot forward. I had some close friends in West Palm that kept me afloat and were a great support system.
Yeah.
But yeah, really, it wasn't until I get a random package in the mail one day.
Wait. You're going too fast.
Oh, sorry.
So,
Rewind.
yeah. So I'm going through this soul searching thing, and it's just not working, right? Like I'm trying to date people that fit my list of criteria for what I think I need to have, right? And I'm not finding that person, or if I am, they're not interested in me. Like it was a really weird dating landscape, and I was kind of just confused, and the loneliness was starting to sink in a little bit. Even though we hadn't been broken up for that long, it was just like, if he wasn't right for me, who is? Like I'm never going to find the right person, and it was really dark for some parts of that. I mean, I was living by myself. I was in grad school. It was really stressful, and I was really lonely, and I didn't have anyone to kind of talk to about it. So it was a challenging period. And we had a friend who was getting married, and I was going to go sing in her wedding, and I needed to go to West Palm to do that. So I texted Stephen as a courtesy and let him know that I was going to be in church at his home church the next week. I didn't want to surprise him or make him uncomfortable, and I just wanted to give him permission to kind of give me like a wide berth if he didn't want to, interact. And you texted me back and asked if we could go get coffee. Why did you want to get coffee?
I really just wanted closure about a couple things, because I think that night I had a lot of emotions going on about, listening to the voice of God kind of thing, the whole like Jesus made us break up kind of concept.
Oh yeah, because that's kind of like the apostolic version of a Dear John letter.
Yeah, it's like it's a common trope, but I just had a couple things I wanted to get clarity on, and at this point, I want you to know, when I asked her to go get coffee, I had zero intentions of trying to get back with her, mainly because, again, going back to, I don't want her to be in a relationship where she feels like, if she's truly listening to the voice of God, that she shouldn't be in. And so I knew that I could not be the one that reinitiated the relationship, because that would be me asking her to ignore that voice.
Right.
And so I truly had pure intentions about just wanting to get clarity on a couple things. And we had a nice, hour and a half coffee date. Coffee talk.
We went to Starbucks and sat outside, and we caught up. We talked about the breakup, and kind of, I felt like you had some closure, but then we talked and just kind of caught up, and you were talking about,
I was being intentionally reserved, though, of course.
yeah, but you were telling me about like outreach ministry
yeah.
and different things that you were involved in, and I was just watching you talk and seeing your eyes light up when you were talking about outreach, and I just had this wave of like, what am I doing hit me. And it was this like, why did I break up with this guy? And it left me feeling really confused, honestly. Like I left that coffee date just feeling really torn. And I was staying in town with a friend. Shout out to Jennifer Payton, who continues to be a wonderful friend for both of us. She and her husband now.
Absolutely.
But I was staying with her. She was single at the time, and we were talking through this, and we went out to dinner, and I was just laying out all of my confusion. I felt like God had called me away from this person, but at the same time, he seemed so right and good, and there was so many things about him that I was remembering that were so special and important. And I remember I had just come through this period of trying to find someone in the dating space that fit what I thought I needed, and not finding that. So I went home and spent about a month in probably the most intense period of soul searching of my life. And I did things like I wrote letters to you that I don't even know if I still have them anywhere. But they were like trying to sort out what was in my head. Right. I mean, I wrote lists of, here's the reasons why Steven's a good fit for me. Here's the reasons why he's not. Here are the things I really love about him. Here are the things that really annoy me. It wasn't a long list, but there were some on there. I don't even
They're
remember
definitely still there, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I sat with it. I mean, I prayed and I tried to look at everything sort of from a bird's eye view and really go like, is this person, the question that kept coming back to me was, is this person someone who would make me better if I were to spend my life with him? Like that was the core question. Would I become a better version of myself being around you? And there were things that I saw in you that I was longing for. Like, you just have this compassion for people that I found so admirable, where you could just see the best in people from the get-go, and you could kind of overlook people's flaws, and just have this Christ-likeness toward them. And you had this zest for life and sense of adventure and these qualities that I didn't feel like I had in myself that I wanted more of. And I was asking, like, if I'm with Stephen, will I get closer to God? Like, is he the kind of person that I could see myself becoming closer to God with? And realizing that I had been looking for someone to make me happy, and that was outside of the scope of someone's power to do. Like, I needed to find someone who could live life beside me while I chose joy.
Yeah.
So that was me. I'm sitting in Gainesville in my little 1-1, like, with like sticky tape and yarn strings all over the walls, trying to like figure out like the landscape of my emotional interior.
And I'm still working on my bowling.
Steven's
form.
bowling, right? And finally, at the end of all that, I decided that, yeah, you were it. Like, you were the kind of person I wanted to be with, and you were the kind of person I wanted to be like. And the pros outweighed the cons, like, which sounds very Machiavellian, but like, that's how it was.
It's true.
So then I asked you back out.
How'd you do that?
I was real cheesy.
We're living this up, baby.
Yeah. Steven loves telling the story, and I get kind of embarrassed about this part. So I'm like a musician, but like, I'm a good singer, but I'm not a fantastic songwriter. But I decided I was just going to pull out all the stops and be really romantic. So I wrote a song, and I recorded it. I recorded it on like my phone, I think, and I uploaded it to a flash drive. And I wrote a very, very long letter to Stephen explaining that he was the kind of person I wanted to be with, and that I thought he was right for me, and that I wanted to spend my life with him, basically. I mean, I didn't outright ask you to marry me in the letter, but like, it was close.
It's pretty close. Now, let me tell you from my perspective.
Right. So you're bowling.
Yeah, I'm bowling. No. I get home and there's this package that my sister makes sure I get. And I go up into my room. I see it's from Megan.
Priority mail.
Yeah. And I open it up and I see 3 envelopes say, open me first, play me next, read me last, or something like that. Very cute.
It was play me first, read me next, open me last.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It was an absolute mess. Like, when I watched the video, which if you follow the Synchrony Facebook and Instagram, Megan put a little bit about it in one of the stories on there. But she made a video for me talking about, can we start over? She wrote me a 5 or 6 page handwritten letter talking about the thought process for her over the course of the last 6 to 8 months of time. And she basically asked if she could be my girlfriend again. And I'm telling you, y'all, I had never been so distraught. Like, I was an absolute mess. My sister probably heard me audibly crying in my bedroom.
Yeah, and I'm 100% expecting, like, I ship off this package and I'm like, this is going to make him fall madly in love with me again. He's going to rush up here and be at my door. It's going to be raining, right? Like, I had this whole vision in my head, the story that I told myself of how this was going to go. But I made the mistake of saying in the letter, please take all the time you need and seek counsel about this.
Well, she knows how big I am about my my mentor group of
Yeah.
friends.
What I should have said was, get back to me as soon as you get this, please. Like,
Then take time to
please
answer me.
confirm receipt of this
I
package.
took to literally what she said.
You took a month.
I took a month to answer her. I didn't even send her a text to let her know I got it.
Yeah, I texted your sister and was like, hey, did Steven get a package? And she's like, yeah, I think he's looking at it. And that was all
Yeah.
I got for weeks. I finally broke and texted you at some point and was like, please, God, tell me that you got this.
Yeah. About 2 weeks into it, I go to Pastor Kyle and I want to have this conversation with him. And I show him the video. I let him read the letter. I wanted him to see from my perspective what was going on. And he already knew about everything going up to this point. And he finished reading the letters and watching the video, and he's like, is the next envelope a ring? Like, he was like, man. But he basically asked me, Steven, what's your question? And I said, is this the will of God? Like, I don't know how to read this because we broke up for this reason, and now she's asking to go back out with me, and I don't know what to do. And I'm telling you, this is the most valuable bit of information that you could give anyone. He looked at me and said, Steven, there's a reason why that in the Bible, God does not tell you who your wife is.
Mm-hmm.
He says that make sure you're equally yoked, and he gave you free will to choose your wife. Equally yoked, and we have common sense things in ministry, like make sure that you have aligned ministries. Because if one's called to foreign missions and one's called to home missions, it's not going to work out too easily. But he's like, at the end of the day, there are thousands of women in Pentecost that you can marry and still be in the will of God. He goes, it's not necessarily who you marry.
Yeah.
It's what you do in your marriage that determines whether you're in the will of God or not.
Right.
And when he said that to me, it took like that whole like soulmate concept completely out. That like completely trashed that idea of like there is one person for me, and it kind of left it in my boat like, hey, can I see myself working with this person? Yeah. And when he said that to me, it gave me so much freedom, and my prayers were very different after that. And I talked to him 2 weeks after getting the package, but there's a reason why it took another 2 weeks for me to even respond to you, is because my prayers changed. It wasn't about like, Lord, is this your will? It was like, is she like, can I do what you want me to do, God, with this person? And that's it. That's a huge difference in a mindset of prayer.
Such a powerful question though, right? Like, God, your will be done. Will this person help me get there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to the full month after receiving the package. And I said, hey, can we have a conversation?
Yeah, so we're going to have to cut this into 2 parts.
We might have to.
Yeah, because we have to talk about why this made a difference in our marriage.
Yeah.
So the way that this ends is that we decide to go out on our date in Orlando. Yeah. We decide to meet up halfway in between my city and his city, about a 2-hour drive for both of us, and talk. And it was not...
It was like a business transaction.
It was not a romantic date. Let me tell you what. It was like... Yeah, it was like
but
we were buying a trailer.
It was a positive experience.
Yeah.
But it was one of these things that we both knew that we were the right choice for each other.
Yeah.
And what was so cool about this, and we can expound on it more later in the next episode, but it was, we were making a choice to love each other.
Right.
And we already knew that we got along with each other. We already knew that we had compatible mindsets and compatible ministries and all the other things. And we already asked the big questions like about children and about like...
We knew that we found each other attractive.
Yeah, exactly. But this interaction was not about butterflies.
Right. And that made, like, when I tell you that is the reason why our marriage has been good.
Yeah.
Like that cold decision.
It sounds terrible from like a love story perspective.
It is. It's not a romantic love story. We started with cold sores, babe, and now we ended up with a sushi date where neither of us was romantic at all. So we'll talk. Let's talk in the next episode about the impact that this choice had on our marriage and why we think it's such a great way for people to connect. But thank you guys for following along with this weird story.
Sorry, this is a long episode.
Yeah. We'll have to cut out some of the weirder parts, maybe. Maybe not. It's true to who we are.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you guys soon. Back for more.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.